Hi everybody and welcome back. In the last episode we saw how to choose and set up your side mount for a specific mission according to your body size. Today we will see how to prepare the regulators and the tanks and then how to properly connect them to your harness. As usual, Manny is here to help us, and because I want him to be happy, I decided to give him a head. Yes, that's all it takes. Luckily for you, I did it off screen. My goal is to help you choose the hoses of the right length, so you don't end up like me with a bucket full of hoses that you don't know if you're ever going to use again. And then we must learn how to use any kind of tank that we might find in your diving trips. To choose and set up your tanks and regulators, we must find the best compromise between streamlining and comfort, depending on the kind of dives that we want to do and our body size. To do that, we need to follow 5 steps. Step number 1 is choosing your equipment. Now, if you travel a lot, you will want to have a travel hose retainer. This is just the cam band of a BCD with a clip attached to it, which is perfect to put on and off every day on your rental tanks. If you have your own tanks instead, you can use a fixed hose clamps. This is stainless steel, very important. Also, the screw has to be stainless steel. And what is very, very important, regardless which one of these you want to use, is that the length of the clip and the rope that you attach to it has to allow to fit your forearm between your body and the tanks, so as to be at least of this length. Next, you want to consider which kind of hose retainers you want to use. You can have soft one or harder ones. This is just the inner tube of a tire. It's a little bit more difficult to stow the hose and pull it out, but it holds it much better on the tank than the soft ones. Honestly, guys, this is just up to you. They both work by whatever you want. Let's have a look at the regulators now. We want to choose proper side mount regulators, so the first stage is going to be thin and balanced. If it is piston or membrane, that's up to you. What is very, very important is that you choose a model with a swivel turret so we can properly rotate the hoses around our neck. On the left post, we want to have the inflator hose, the short hose with the necklace, and the SPG. On the right post, we're going to have a long hose and the SPG. If you do solo diving or you dive only with the side mount divers, you're not going to need a long hose. You're going to put a short hose also on the right post. It's very important that you choose a second stage where you can invert the position of the hose, because you don't want it coming from here, you want it coming from this side. Another very important detail is the use of elbows. I like the elbows because it's going to keep the hose nicely around my neck instead of making a big loop, especially important if I want to go into restrictions or anyway, guys, it looks better, it's more comfortable, just use the elbows. Now, the last thing is maybe you will need another inflator hose for the right post if you have a dry suit or a BCD with 2 bladders. By the way, if you have a BCD with 2 bladders, you should know that the second one is not going to stay connected. Otherwise, if you have a self-inflation of the wing, you don't know which one of the 2 wings is inflating. Very important. Leave it disconnected. Step number 2 is choosing the position of the tanks. How I'm going to place the tanks on my body? Let's focus on the first stage for now. I can have the first stage flat in front of my chest here, or 45 degrees, almost vertical sometimes, here under my armpit, which is going to be also not more far away, but also lower. As you can imagine, this is going to affect the length of the hoses that I want to buy. Of course, we speak about the short hose for the second stage. Now, the first stage in front of me is good to reach the valve, to read the SPG. If I have it here, it's a little bit more difficult to reach them, but it's more streamlined because the tanks are not going to pop in front of me. They're going to be hiding under my shoulder. Now, if you're a very short person, you might have no choice. You're going to have to keep the first stages here, because otherwise the tank is going to exceed the length of their knees and it's going to drastically affect their trim. Now we have a look at the position of the clip on the tank to attach it to the harness. First, the height. When we place the band on the tanks, we have to leave them almost at the same level of the waist strap, a little bit lower, hopefully always before half of the tank, because this is going to affect our trim. And the clip has to be pointing upward, because this is how it's going to pull. Now we want to see the rotation of the clip on the tank to attach it. Let's start with what happens with an aluminum tank if you want to put it flat in front of us like this. The clip is going to be from the center of the tank here, is going to be basically closer to the back than to half of the tank. Of course, it also depends on the length of the clip, so there are a lot of variables, so you have to allow me for a little bit of margin of error. If instead I want to have the tank 45 degrees under my armpit, is going to be the clip is going to be rotating much closer to the side of the tank. Now let's pretend that this is a steel tank. Steel tanks are heavier, and so we don't manage to make them rotate too much with the bungee. They're basically just going to hang. So instead of the D-ring, usually we attach them on the offset D-ring on the butt, or at least we will have to put this D-ring very close to our back. So because it's going to hang almost like a stage, to have the tank flat, the clip is going to be perfectly in line with the front of the tank. Of course, we always need some flexibility because of the length of the clip. If instead we want to have our tank hanging 45 degrees, we're going to have to move it a little bit towards the side where we have the valve knob, like this, tack, and then it's going to attach to the back of our harness. After all, you have to try underwater to see if it really works or not. This is just an indication of what you need. Step number 3 is going for shopping, which is the best part, at least for the dive shop. Now, we already know if we want to put the first stage on our chest or under our armpit. We already took this decision, so we go to choose our balanced first stage with the DIN connection and the swivel turret. And once we have it in our hands, we put it under our armpit or in front of our chest. We put the hose around our neck, because now we have to measure if it is long enough. If, for example, I want to put it under my armpit, the hose must allow me to look up and on the same side of the first stage that I'm trying, okay? So up, right in this case. I must be able to comfortably look around with my head without the hose being tight on my neck. This is how you decide. Now, the inflator hose for the side mount, they're fairly standard, so just buy one and see if it works. What we have to check is the SPG, okay? Because if we buy a short, high-pressure hose for the SPG, like for a stage tank, which will be in front of you, this one we don't need to bend it all the way because the stages are in front of us, so it can be short. It bends like making an L, just a little bit. But the side mount is going to be, even if it is in front of us, the SPG is going to be behind our back. So the hose must be much longer. What I must be able to do is to bend it like a U, not just like a L, like this. Must be like a U, because this allows me to read it without too much effort. We arrived to step number 4, which is preparing our tanks. Now, I'm going to set up these tanks as I use them, which means under my armpit, tilted 45 degrees. First, we're going to put the rigs, then the hose retainers, and then we put on the regulators. Let's start. You probably didn't notice, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My hose clamps are in pairs, left and right, but because I'm a genius, I made a mistake and I brought 2 left pairs. So now one has the cam on this side and the other one is all on the other side, so sorry. Basically, the point of using the cams with the Velcro, you want to have the Velcro as much as possible protected against your body. This is why it's important to have one left and one right. Anyway, let's see about the equipment setup. Let's start with our main regulator, which is the left post. As you can see, I don't use any hose retainer on this tank because I just wrap the necklace around the first stage. For the left one, I used the soft bands now to show you what happens with the second stage. That is going to hang a little bit, but you know, we can deal with that. Now, about the rotation of the hose in the bands when I stow it, it's very important that regardless if I put it clockwise or counterclockwise, when I deploy it underwater, I deploy this part has to go up like this near the swivel turret, because if you accidentally pass it like this under the SPG, then it's going to be impossible to deploy it properly, and the bungee of the tank is going to wrap around it. Very, very bad. So important is, regardless how you route your tank, you have to make sure that this part is on this side of the SPG to avoid entanglement. Step number 5, adjusting the harness. We're going to see how to move the D-rings and adjust the bungee according to how we decide to place the tanks. Now, first of all, guys, if you have sliding D-rings, it doesn't matter because, you know, they slide. If you have fixed D-rings, now, depending on the size of your waist, you want to have them. If you are very big, they're going to be far away from the belly button. And if you are very, very skinny, you can put them very close to the belly button, to the buckle, okay? If you use steel tanks, I already told you, you're going to attach them probably in the offset D-rings on the butt. Now, for the bungee, here it depends if we use the tanks in the front or under the armpit, because this harness is set to have the tanks under the armpit, so the bungee retainer is very low. If instead we put the tanks in front of us flat, the only thing we have to do is to move this up here, or even attach the bungee directly to the slider where we have the D-rings. There is a difference in attaching the bungee to the tank depending if I want the valve flat or under my armpit. In this case, let's say if I want to keep it flat in front of me, the bungee has to go under the SPG like this, and then it's going to go all the way around and connect here to the stem of the dry valve, the plug of the modular valve. If instead I want the tanks to be 45 degrees, like this, then the bungee is going to go outside the SPG and then connect here like before. That's it. That's the only difference. If when you go on vacation you don't find the modular valves for your side mount tanks and you have only the normal K valves for rent, the challenge is to attach the bungee, especially on the left tank, because on the right one is not really a big deal. The bungee is going to go on the knob and that's it. It's going to look normal. Now, on the left side here, if we have a little bit of protrusion for the burst disc, we can attach the bungee like this, as we will do on the modular valve. But if this part is flat inside, instead of being like this, we are going to have to go around the SPG, and then we have to pass inside, going around and putting it around the knob. We don't have a choice. Does it work? Yes. Is it going to be perfect? Of course it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than a kick in the butt. So good luck. As a bonus, I'm going to give you a tip about the SPG. If you have the tanks under your armpit and you struggle to reach it to read it, what you can do is to keep the first stage canted a little bit, like 10-15 degrees, and now the SPG is going to be easier to reach under your armpit. That's it for today. Thank you for following us until the end, and I will see you in the next episode where we do the underwater trial and hopefully we don't drown. Now guys, remember, it's always better to have a hose 2 inches longer than 2 inches shorter. Then you also have to know how to use it, but that's another story.